Hello, good evening, and welcome to episode number 11 of the Black Feather and Ospreys Rugby Fancast. Hello, both. How are we?
Oh, good apart from a 2 hour window on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I'm half Italian, so add the Italian game onto that as well. Two depressing fixtures from my perspective.
Mm.
Yeah, not good. A lot of gloomy Rod wandering around the house. You know, annoying my partner, bringing
Are
down
you
the
a
mood.
sulker? Because I'm
I
a
am a
sulker.
sulker. I'm
Yeah,
a proper
absolutely me as well.
sulker. Like, don't speak to me for the rest of the day, because I will be miserable. And if I wake up in the morning, you remind me about it, I'm going to be miserable again.
I nearly didn't wear my Welsh shirt out of
Yeah.
pure protest. I just thought I can't face wearing the red.
Yeah.
Um, and then I just thought, so not a great weekend to be either a Welsh fan, a Scotland fan, in the case of John, or in your case, Rod, also an Italian fan.
Yeah.
Not
Took my
like
jersey
not
off halfway through the Italian game. Yeah.
well, you know, I'm I am genuinely fearful now. I thought, oh, little jolly next year now, go away and watch, a nice Six Nations game in Rome, and I'm now scared. I paid a lot of money to go and watch a game with a really nice ticket, and you know what? I might be Italian for the weekend. Ciao bella. Um, did try learning Italian on Duolingo, but it just kept teaching me the same words for 10 euros. I knew that already. But yeah, not a great weekend for Wales, but also the other Northern Hemisphere teams. I suppose we
Mhm.
can get on to Wales eventually, but if we have a quick little roundup of the other games of the weekend. So we started off on Friday evening with a niggle match between New Zealand and Ireland. Ireland obviously hoping to keep their unbeaten home record for the last 3 years. And we know that they've gone pretty close against the All Blacks over the last 3 years, with the weight pretty much falling on the side of the All Blacks. But we've seen through the Rugby Championship that New Zealand had a propensity to not be able to close games out. But after England last week and Ireland this week, it doesn't seem to be continuing to be an issue from them. They had really good control performance on Friday evening. Damien McKenzie, Will Jordan. Let's talk Will Jordan's try while I remember. Fantastic try by Will Jordan, and they were just so competitive. Um, Outstanding, absolutely outstanding. I don't know if you guys had the chance to watch on Friday evening.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
did. And I don't think both teams were firing on all cylinders. The thing is that the Irish like to build their plays phase on phase on phase with ruthless sort of discipline, not giving away any pens, which eventually results for them in usually some points. Whereas New Zealand just have these flashes of brilliance, don't they? And they can just create those moments out of nothing with from a single player and just build points that way. So when you've got two teams like that who aren't firing on all cylinders, the one that's just got that bit of magic is going to pull it out of the bag. And yeah, Ireland no longer number one.
yeah, it was quite a poor quality game considering it was number one against number three in the world as it was on Friday.
Mm.
It just didn't spark, did it really? It sort of, yeah, I think the pre-match was probably more exciting than the match itself in the end. It isn't often you see the All Blacks winning by primarily kicking penalties from 40 meters out or whatever, which is, how they built their points eventually. I think the breakdown was a big factor. I think it was Si was on with us last week and said something about the shock in Dublin as the Irish breakdown is finally refereed after years of getting away with murder. And the All Blacks obviously targeted that.
Yeah,
The Irish scrum as well. They were missing props, first team props Friday night. That was obviously a target from the All Blacks as well, targeting the scrum. And yeah, the All Blacks found a way to win, and there's been all sorts of rubbish online about, oh, is this the end of Ireland's dominance, and this, that, and the other. They had a bad night at the office at the end of the day, and they lost for the first time in 3.5 years at home. It's going to happen eventually, and they had an off day, and that's not to say they're not going to come back firing next week again.
Yeah. And from my point of view, a lot of was made about Rico and Johnny Sexton beforehand. There was a lot of airwaves given to that, which I think is silly, really. Sexton's got a book to sell at the end of the day. He's going to put slightly controversial things in there, and there's always a bit, there's always going to be a bit of banter and a bit of shithousery. Do you know what I mean? But I did. It was nice to see that little bit, as you said, Rod, a little bit of magic coming back for the All Blacks, because at points there was just utter brilliance with them. I don't know if anybody saw Sam Cane's face the day after,
Yeah,
pictures of his stitches.
yeah.
Ooh, that's going to be sore. Um,
The All
yeah,
Blacks are building on that. They've been in sort of transition for the last, well, since the World Cup really, and
yeah, they
during
didn't have a great
the
rugby
Arctic as well.
championship. Um,
But the difference, I suppose, with them to a lot of other countries is the amount of players that they've got that they can build that squad again and sort of transition to the next stage
yeah,
of their All Black. The next players are coming through, aren't they? And they've got that sort of
yeah,
quality coming through. And I think they're going to be right back up there on the next couple of seasons again, building
yeah.
for the next World Cup.
And then
What
we
will be
had
really
another.
interesting is Ireland Argentina next week.
Yeah,
Because Argentina looked pretty ruthless in their display against
They
Italy.
looked good against Italy.
And yeah, and it's going to be a damaged Ireland looking to prove a bit of a point. That could be a really exciting
yeah,
game. We know how Argentina like to spread it, and they've got,
Next Friday night is going to be a good one to
yeah,
watch.
yeah.
So I've funnily enough I put on my list of things, my kind of one to watch next week, or one of the ones to watch was Ireland, Argentina, and then I put England, South Africa, because I think there's going to be some very hurt English players out there.
Mhm.
Um, but again, moving on to England, Australia, um, again, they lost that right at the end, um, you know, 37-42. And I think, did you see Jamie George's? And then it just bottom fell out of their world.
yeah.
I think for me, looking at that game, and worryingly, looking at that game, is the Wallabies have kind of come together and Schmidt quite well. They played 10 games now, and they've got 50-50 success rate, which in comparison to Gatland coming back when we've won 6 out of 22, it it's a bit of a
Yeah.
difference, and I think for me, Suali, that 21-year-old, I think one of his
Mhm.
teammates called him a freak, didn't they? And I think they were right. He's come
That's
from playing Aussie
insane.
Rugby League,
It's insane.
which is tough. Like Aussie Rugby League is up there, to make his first
It's this
debut
game of
in
union, isn't it?
Union on the world stage. Oh my gosh, he was superb. The height on him, I think there was one up and under that he caught where I think he was practically 4 or 5 feet off the floor. I
Mhm.
just blew him at 21.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
He was unplayable, wasn't he? Completely
Yeah,
unplayable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
absolute. He's going to be a handful on Saturday. An absolute handful. Um, I think again with me, if I was an England fan looking at it, I think he took Marcus Smith off a little bit too soon again.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, it's this whole analytics thing, isn't it? They sort of took him off when he was playing well the week before. They
yeah,
moved him to fullback on Saturday. They've obviously got a set plan that the analytics have told them is the best way to get the game won. It's, sort of using a baseball term, is sort of the money ball type
yeah,
of whatever. And you know, 2 weeks running now, they've brought forward on who hasn't shown the same kind of dangerous play. Smith was
no,
tearing it apart at points on Saturday, and he was
No.
looking dangerous. And he was getting the back line firing. And then they take him out of the game and put him at fullback. It just made no sense at all. But I think
Yeah,
for England, this is obviously becoming a habit now, isn't it? these defeats, the sort of last minute defeats and the defeats by 2 points, 3 points, 4 points. It's a real habit that they've got into, a bit like our 10 game losing
losing
streak that we got
habit.
to in a minute, and it's tough to break that, when you're in that mold.
And that's the problem, isn't it? Is it's that last we're talking 4 or 5 minutes. We're not talking, massive stretches of the game where they've let themselves down. They've been ultra competitive up to the 95th percentile of the game. And then that last 5 minutes, they lose their grasp on the game. And again, game management. Um, there have been some funny memes though about him smiling on the bench and looking nervous. And that has made me laugh. But I suppose then we've got to go on to, we've got Italy, Argentina. Rod, I'm sorry to bring it up, but the RGs did look pretty good. Um, you know, on Saturday afternoon. And you're right, I think it is going to be a good one against Ireland on Friday. Um, is there any point talking about France, Japan? Scoreline wasn't
Oh,
great.
yeah, we're going to go
Didn't
one
really
way,
see
wasn't it? Yeah.
anything. Yeah, didn't see anything interesting on there.
Just the Italy
Um,
Argentina game was so open, wasn't it? Both
yeah,
Yeah.
teams did so many errors from Italy as well that Argentina just sort of gobbled up. But Italy was so error strewn and open and just going for absolutely everything. It
Yeah.
was,
And they decided not to play like Benetton, but to play like Zebra.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and it was a bit painful to watch. They reverted back to the Italy of about 4 or 5 years ago,
yeah.
didn't
They
they?
did.
Where
They
where
really
where
did.
you honestly don't expect them to do much with ball in hand. Over the last couple of years, they've shown us otherwise that they've got the ability, which just makes it so much more frustrating when they put in a performance like that again.
yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah,
It
weird.
is frustrating. And sometimes the Italians are a joy to watch.
Mm.
Um, they've got that little bit of, I suppose, Italian charisma about them sometimes, but it was a shame to watch. Um, and then we leave Wales to last. We'll leave that sticking plaster there for a moment. Um, Against the South Africa, Scotland, I think the scoreline pretty much flatters South
Mm.
Africa really because it was just Scotland's inability to get over that try line that did them injustice. Finn Russell, I'd love to know what goes on in his head because he just tries shit that he should be doing on the training field.
Yeah,
And if it comes off, it's magic. And
Mm.
he's just pleasure to watch. And I think for me, the frustrating thing watching that was that they just couldn't, they were super competitive against the South Africans the entire way along. They just couldn't get over that try line.
Mhm.
because that
That
period
was what,
when South Africa were down to 14, weren't they? And Scotland were
yeah,
just line break after line break after line break, Hugh Jones breaking through and whatever, and they just couldn't
yeah,
get that last pass in to get the try. And I think if they'd scored at that point, then who knows what might have happened from there, really. But
yeah.
it was
And they're
that
just allowed
period,
to
and then as
try.
soon as South Africa got their full complement back on the pitch, they
Yeah,
just took the game away, didn't they, in the last 10, 15?
yeah.
Yeah.
It was a really spirited display, and they just never seemed to give up. They were always
Mm.
trying to try something to move it forward. They just couldn't deliver that knockout blow for me.
Mm.
But again, as a semi-neutral watching that, great game.
Yeah.
Um,
How fun is it to watch that bomb squad come on, though?
Mm.
Exmouth was the only one to play the full 80. You got the six forwards all coming on in
what I
one
mean,
hit.
I go to
It's just-
Exeter. Um, John has taken great umbrage at the eye gouging.
Oh, yeah.
Um, Someone sent him a thing to say, I think the English need to wear these next week. No, the safety goggles that you used to get
Yeah.
in school when you were doing chemistry. But it happens, it's not ideal, but it happens. But I think we've got to go on to Wales Fiji now, guys, haven't we? We've got to talk
Mhm.
about it. Let's rip that plaster off. Um, we were talking
Starting with a big shout out to Fiji for their first ever win in Cardiff. It's got to start there.
absolutely
They bloody deserved it. Nothing we say, like there's going to probably be a lot of negatives coming out over the next 10 minutes, but nothing we say is to beat on Fiji. They
Absolutely
should
not.
they should be beating teams like us now. We are underperforming, if you want to call it that, and they are year on year improving in everything
They've
that they
said that's
do.
their goal.
They've
Yeah.
still got their flaws. Their discipline is still atrocious at times. Flying in for some of those tackles,
That's why they're called the
Rudrada,
Flying
and yeah,
Fijians.
Yeah.
and other moments. But yeah, n nobody can take it away from them that that is a monumentous achievement for them, winning at ho away
Caleb
in
Muntz was
Cardiff.
impressive.
Yeah, yeah,
Caleb Muntz was great. Um,
yeah.
Obviously, lots of talking points in the game with regards to trialing the new first 20-minute red card. A lot of history on the line with regards to, our losing streak. We're on a losing streak of 10. And a lot of talk about it being a must-win game, but we all know it was a must-win game. We had to win that, and we just didn't. Um, Rod, I think you're right. It came down to man management. The thing that's absolutely amazed me and the thing that I take away from it all, who thought it was a good PR move to admit that Costello went on instead of Bevan in error for Mason Grady?
Why would you
Who
even
thought
say
that?
it? Yeah.
Why? Why would you even say that that had been done? Like,
Yeah.
Just
you
shows
know,
incompetence, doesn't it? Just complete
It's like I'm
incompetence.
not this stupid. I'm this stupid.
stupid. Look,
And it wasn't
oh,
just saying that it happened, but saying that there was a definite plan for that eventuality
they
that they
said that the plan
sorted
was always for
beforehand,
Bevan to go on.
and then
Yeah.
they still managed to cock it up anyway.
Yeah.
So everybody within that backroom team, everybody on that bench, and those two players knew what the plan was.
And
And there
didn't
was,
execute the plan.
yeah, I think it was Lauren Jenkins was saying that she was sat down pitch side and she could see Costello going on, sort of waving his arms around, looking a bit confused.
Confused. What am I
Um,
doing?
so, how the hell did they make that kind of mistake? And the sad thing is, it'll be him that'll be thrown under the bus
Yeah.
for this. He'll be out to the sort of 23 probably next weekend.
And you're not talking, it's the second half that he's gone on. He's gone on in the first half.
Yeah, in a position
What
he's
was
never played.
said during half time? Surely
Yeah.
you're like,
So
oh, do you know
I
what?
wonder
We've
if at
mastered
that point you
this.
can correct it if it's been acknowledged that that was a mistake. Can you sub that player back off, put Ellis back on with plenty of time to go in the game
I
and
don't
not
think you can.
you can't, can you? Once
I don't
that's
think so. I'll
No,
look
they could
into
have
that,
brought
but
him
I don't.
on. Yeah, I think they could have brought him on, but obviously that would have then used up
Then,
another
yeah,
substitution.
another
So,
sub, yeah.
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 Okay. They've got to
Um,
identify where this lack of communication came from because it's just not
not bringing
acceptable.
earphones in.
Yeah, I think on the Rap podcast they said that it couldn't have been at Warren Gatlands' end. If that was his decision, he would have sent out that
And
message, and it must have
yeah,
been, en route down to the pitch side that went, got Chinese whispered into something else.
It was
I
pre-planned,
think
wasn't
they
it?
mentioned that it would probably be Nugget, but I don't know if the accountability lies with him. It's just
do you know what?
embarrassing. Amateur hour.
But it comes down to the selection
Absolutely.
beforehand as well, doesn't it? I think
Yeah.
all of us recognised when that 23 came out, they had Thomas already on the pitch who could cover 10, Blair Murray already on the pitch who could cover 10, and a 10 on the bench with no centres or outside backs on the bench at
What's
all.
the
So
point?
it was an accident waiting to happen where it was just
It was
disaster
6-2
waiting to happen,
split
and
on
it
your
happened
bench.
within 15 minutes.
But even
And
after
I
that
think,
mistake was made, they could have adapted on pitch and made better decisions and shifted
yeah,
people around. Instead, they
Yeah.
let Costello struggle on the wing when they had
Yeah.
opportunity to put Anscombe at 15 or, put
Josh out on the
Llewellyn out
wing.
on the wing, which
Yeah.
he
yeah,
has played at club
he's done
level.
played well
There,
before.
there, there were opportunities there to improve the situation, but we
Yeah.
dealt ourselves a bad hand, and then with all those options, then played the worst hand of a bad hand. Like,
Yeah.
oh,
Just left a
silly.
tiny fly half who's never played wing before out there to
Yeah,
suffer and be targeted throughout, really, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
And we
yeah.
know he's suffering
And you're
with
going to target
confidence.
that. You're going to
Yeah.
target it. And,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
first 10, 15 minutes, that, Blair Murray try, I thought, oh, hang on a minute now, we're looking all right by here. Got like quietly, cautiously optimistic. And I think the game kind of stalled a little bit with those consecutive yellow and red cards because we had that flurry of sort of like 10, 15 minutes where play was really stop and start. Um, with what was going on. And I do think the right calls were made, and I did think the TMO was making the right calls, but it did seem as though it was stalling the game and stopping momentum building, which I don't think necessarily did Wales any favours. Um, and I just think from there on in, then it kind of lacked any momentum, any magic. I don't know whether it's because we didn't have ball carriers on the field. We didn't allow our set pieces because we know against teams like Fiji, you've got to have your set pieces. You've got to be strong in your set pieces because they can't deal with that. If you
Mm.
loosen up play, you're right. The Fijians will just play what's in front of them. Um,
I'm
and the
set piece.
reality,
Well, we won all of our lineouts, didn't we, on Saturday? I think we won every single lineout.
yeah,
It was clearly a tactic for the drive from the lineout, which we used effectively
it
at
worked.
points during the game. It was working quite well. But you're saying about carries. I mean, that was a big difference, I think. And one stat that I picked up from earlier on, Wales made 130 carries, Fiji made 127, but Fiji made 100 more meters ground with those carries
Yeah,
than Wales did.
yeah,
And they
Yeah.
did, and then they had twice as many line breaks in that as well. And in the first 20-25 minutes, our biggest ball carrier was no doubt Dowlake. He seemed to be getting the
Hmm.
ball all the time.
yeah.
He was the only one trucking up the rest of the forwards. I can't remember a huge shift put in by any of the forwards in terms of ball carrying throughout, really, and that's what we
No.
missed. I think we missed that kind of gnarly ball carrier that all the top international teams have got to get us on the front foot. That should have been Plumtree's job, should have been Will Rowland's
Well,
job.
I
Um,
put
And
for
that's
my
what was
notes tonight.
infuriating. Taking off that front row at 46 minutes is just a mental decision. I was screaming at the TV. Like you said, Mark, Dewi was our strongest carrier. He was the only one getting us any
yeah.
go forward. I haven't seen the stats, but I wouldn't be surprised after just that 46 minutes, he's topping the charts for balls carried and post contact meters. We lost all our scrum dominance after that. We lost our best carrier and our captain. It's just a really strange
It
decision
did.
to make.
I put in my notes preparing for this because I did make the epic mistake of watching it a second time because I
Mm.
was just so infuriated on like Sunday that I kind of couldn't quite I couldn't even watch the last 10 minutes. I went to bed. I'm not even gonna lie, I went to bed for sleep. And I wrote down Dewey and Aaron only real ball carriers.
Mm.
Defence has got to be tighter. Um, and those are the things that I took away from it. Um, and I think looking forward to Australia, then where do we go from here? What kind of, because I kind of thought about my 15 for Australia and my bench for Australia. And the only real things that I could think of was do we stay consistent with what we've got, or do we swap things up? So for me, Ben Thomas is the strongest scrummager. So do we pop him in? And then we've got, you know, Archie Griffiths on the bench, so we can bring him in because his scrummaging not so strong. And I do think Jack has got to start.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because, for
I
me,
mean, that's one of the other decisions that I question when it comes to, Gatland's man management from this game was Jack Morgan was clearly fit. He came on and he performed well and was one
Yeah.
of our
yeah,
standouts. If he was capable of doing that, why wasn't he starting? Tommy Reffel, he's a good player, but he was absent in this one. It
didn't
wasn't
really
the
make
game for him. We once we lost the structure after the cards, it was just loose, and that played right into Fiji. If he was capable of doing something and slowing down that ball, he wasn't doing it. And Jack
no,
made the difference when he came on, not in terms of result, but in terms of just giving us something in that
yeah,
game. It could have been worse.
Yeah.
yeah.
We,
And
we we talked a lot about the 10-12 axis as well last week. That was one of the positions where we weren't quite sure where Gatland was going to go with that. I think, like you said, some promising signs at the start. It looked like, Ben Thomas was looking decent, and sort of a lot of the
Yeah,
Cardiff fans online were sort of crowing about, oh, you Thomas doubters. Now you can see why
yeah,
he's in the team. And then he disappeared.
Mm.
And I think there was a difference at sort of fly half and inside centre that Muntz was on the gain line. He was sort of pressing all the time, putting the defence under sort of pressure constantly, whereas Anscombe seemed to be just sort of shoveling the ball sideways. Thomas wasn't the strong enough ball carrier to
no,
get any go forward. Llewellyn was often being used as that sort of target man, sort of to sort of try and get that sort of go forward from 13. And we know that's Gatland's target over the years, or tactics over the years, rather, to play that
is
big
that
ball
channel.
carrier. So why not play that person at 12 and have a strong ball carrying 12 if that's what he wants to do, rather than try and play this sort of 10-12 axis of two, ball playing players.
Yeah,
Um, to me, as the game went on, it just didn't work. And Anscombe isn't the future for us. And I know he certainly wasn't the worst player on the field on Saturday. But the future at 10 is really, really worrying because Ben Thomas has got the
we've got to get
capability
that
of playing
right.
the 10, but he's not been played at 10 at sort of club level, so he's not going to play there. Costello's confidence is shot. Who else have we got to play at 10,
He
And
felt like he shoved to the wind, like to the wolves on Saturday.
yeah,
To do that to him, he did look like a fish out of water. He did not know his proverbial, you know, derriere to his elbow, really, because we're not like the New Zealanders. We don't teach our kids to be utility players or play wherever. I one of the most impressive things that I one of the things I've taken away from watching the All Blacks and stuff is just because your shape or your size in New Zealand doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get pigeonholed into a certain position. They will let their youngsters have a bit of flair and see where their flair lies. We don't do that to our kids over here. We don't give them the position to move around. So there are very few players who can play out of position.
Yeah.
Um, and he just looked lost.
He's not
And
one
he's
of them.
young.
I was just looking at his All Rugby page online, his sort of player stats, and he's played once outside of the 10 shirt, and that was once at centre in his entire playing career. So yeah,
Ten's a specialist
yeah.
position. Do you
yeah.
Mm.
know it is? Um, you know, guys, us, we're normally really positive on the pod. We try and see the best out of everything, but we're scraping the barrel to find something positive out of
Yeah.
Saturday.
Do you know
And
what the
we're
moment
not
I
alone.
Do you know the moment I enjoyed in the game the most, and this is going to sound bizarre now, but I thought it encapsulated Welsh rugby where we are at the moment. It was Tuisova's handoff when he sat
Handoff. I thought
Thomas
you were going to say
Williams,
it.
when
Yeah,
he sat on Thomas Williams, and if one moment
Yeah,
encapsulates where Welsh rugby is at the moment, it was Thomas
that's it.
Williams on his ass, wondering what the hell's just hit me,
What's happened?
and
Yeah,
I thought that's just Welsh rugby in a
yeah.
nutshell.
yeah, yeah.
And
We
there's
looked
been
inferior physically,
Yeah,
and I
we
know
did
it's
look sharp.
Fiji and they are animals, but
I don't think you
you
can
know,
call them
we we
animals, Rod.
we look well in the most positive sense I
yeah.
can load,
Men Mountain.
meaning
You go
behind
for
it I can
Men
give.
Mountain. They're large, lads. They're large.
They are
Um,
specimens, and we aren't. We aren't.
no, no, we're
It's as simple.
not. And but then that's where the beauty of our Welsh flair and skill has always come in. We weren't the biggest going back to the 70s, the 80s, or the 90s, but what we've always had is that little something, something about us
Mm.
that's given us that magic. And it's bad when you go on Twitter and you've got ex-players and people also coming out with the things. So um, the three that have stood out for me this week is Cuthbert, Mike Phillips, and Jamie Roberts. Now, Cuthbert's probably been the nicest one out of all of them, saying this week ahead, now heading into the Australia game, is the biggest week of Warren Gatlands' career, which is possibly the understatement of the year. But then he's kind of put a spin on it because obviously he's looking to go into that, pundit kind of role and said, but I think he can get it right. Now, my counter argument to that is, do we have the time to allow him to get it right? Because 10 losses is not a good look. Dare I mention the world rankings? We're 11.
And if
If
Georgia
we lose
win
against
on
Australia,
Saturday,
we
yeah,
go to 12.
yeah,
That is not, we are tier 3 rugby.
yeah.
That's awful. I've never seen that in my lifetime, and I've seen some bad in my lifetime. Jamie Roberts then has gone that little bit further and kind of said that, well, he's kind of said this is the worst that we've been in the pro area and pro era, and has left it at that. Bigger's kind of said again, winning's a habit, but so is losing, and we're currently within that losing habit. But the person who's come out and proper nailed his colours to the mask is Mike Phillips. And he's put it out there on Twitter for all to see. And I think he took great umbrage at Warren Gatlands saying on an interview post-match that he saw some positives from the match. And he's kind of done the loads of positives question mark. He's laughing all the way to the bank on 600k. We shouldn't have brought him back. And there's more than that, but so some unhappy ex-players out there. We've got questions from people who watch the pod and stuff as well. But I suppose the question really is, where do we go from here? If not Gatland, who? Because it's not exactly it's a bit of a shallow pool out there, isn't it, for coaches?
Yeah.
And do we do it before the Six Nations? If we're going to do it, do we do it after the Six Nations? Because I think, for me, 10 losses on the bounce, looking at the worst performance we've had in the pro era and since 1937, something's got to change. And you can't keep saying they're young and we're going to blood them in, because
Mm.
the Welsh public aren't going to buy that.
Yeah, it was interesting listening to Gareth Rhys-Owen talking. I think it was before the game on Sunday, and I think he was questioned on the one of the BBC podcasts about whether Gatland would be under pressure and the union would consider about firing him if the autumn goes badly. And his point was, can we actually afford to fire him? Because he's got quite a long time left in his contract at 600 grand a year. Have the union got that sort of money lying around to pay any kind of severance to get rid of him, or do we have to see him out to the end of his contract, or let him resign if he's so wishes to do so, really? But as you say, in terms of who we go, I mean, I've heard O'Gara's name being bandied about today. I can't see that, to be honest, but
Don't think he's ready for that step up.
no.
Um,
The question is whether Gatland is capable of adapting and coming up with a new game plan. For a long period there, we've seen him trying to continue to force Warren ball. And maybe for the last, well, this year, this calendar year, where we haven't lost a game, funnily enough, it seems like he's maybe been trying to shift towards something a bit different, maybe built around a bit more of an expansive game. But I don't know whether he's implementing that or whether we've got the players to conform to that style of play. So that, yeah, I don't know if he's sort of stuck in the past a bit and needs to introduce some new
adapt.
ideas. One option could be that he moves up to the sort of DOR, Director of Rugby style role, and either somebody steps up beneath him or some new blood is brought in. But again, I don't know what the benefit of that would be if there's still Gatland's oversight, because it's going to be him wanting to implement his certain style of play still from the top. So
Yeah.
I don't think a realistic option is getting rid of him at the moment. I think we've just got to sort of give it a bit more time, despite how sort of tamping I am with how results have
He's
gone
got
in
3 years
recent
left.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
That's
think,
just under 2 mil. You
yeah.
know,
And I
you're
think
not
the
going to
worry
move
is
away from that.
how far this losing streak can go, because we've got two tough games left now in the autumn. We've got Ireland and England at home in the Six Nations and the other three away from home.
Yeah.
None of those games are going to be gimmies, especially if we've lost all the games in the autumn as well. So we could, before we know it, be looking at a 17 game run which is unthinkable, really. We didn't think 10 games was going to be possible, if we're talking about 15,
The
16.
Welsh public won't stand for it much longer.
Oh, that's it, yeah.
They won't.
I
Still
think we
wondering
need to be
where the win's going
a
to
bit
come
more.
from.
Sorry, Mark, what was that?
No, I was just wondering where that win's going to come from, really.
Yeah. I think we've got to be a bit more flexible to get that win. Looking ahead to Australia next week and just generally forward into the future, we don't seem to be very adaptable when things move away from the game plan that we're trying to implement. So, and that obviously on the weekend benefited Fiji massively. When those three yellow cards came, two for Fiji and one for us, they thrived off that. And they made the most of it and made us chase the game, essentially. They got that Caleb Muntz try when they were down to 13 men, and we just looked uncomfortable, even though we
Look
had the man
stupid.
advantage. We need to be a bit more ruthless going forward, but also just a bit more flexible to sort of play what's in front of us. And you're not going to get that with one fly half who's short of confidence and one fly half who's in the latter end of his career who plays a certain style of game, which when
Mm,
it works, it works. When it doesn't, it's not going to be very useful to us.
yeah.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, what do we need to change on Saturday? I mean, I think we've probably all sort of put together a sort of a little bit of a 15 of what we'd like to see on Saturday. Like you said,
Yeah,
I think Jack has to be a given that he has to come in on Saturday.
Yeah.
The impact that he made was massive. I'd say
yeah,
front row, Henry Thomas and Nicky Smith potentially to both come in. I know Thomas wasn't even on the bench on Saturday, but he is the form prop
yeah,
in Wales so far this season. Whether Azarati's still ahead of him in Gatland's eyes, I don't know. Second row, Rowlands and Beard, neither of them, okay, Beard in the tight was decent on Saturday. Rowlands had probably one of his worst games in a Wales
yeah.
shirt ever.
Yeah.
Really give
You didn't look
Chins
fit.
somebody like that a chance on Saturday. Plumtree was invisible. Both of them looked a little bit more lively when he came on. So does he? There's a lot of changes potentially that could be made, but I sense the Gatland's probably going to say, right, okay, you blew it last Sunday. Let's give you another chance next weekend. Same thing at 10
Yeah.
and at 10 and 12. Anscombe and Thomas. I can see him starting them again, even though I
Yeah,
said last week that James should be playing at 12, especially with Gatland's style of play, and if that's the way he wants to play, then Eddie James suits that better. Um, but then I can't see him leaving Ben Thomas out of the team completely. If he's the best back in Wales, as Gatland said, he has to be in that team some way. He's not going to play him at 10 because he's not playing at 10 for Cardiff. So I think we're probably going to be still with that same axis at 10, 12. We'll have an
yeah,
enforced change on the wing because of Grady being
Mason
out.
Grady's out, isn't
You
he?
would imagine Dyer coming in for Grady is the likely change there. Win it at a decent game on Saturday, offensively and under the high ball. Certainly, defensively still looks a bit light. But he was one of the better players on the field.
hmm
Um, but despite all the changes that you could make, and as you say, Rod, the bravery the Gatlin could show in his team selection for Sunday,
I don't think
I've
he
got a
will.
funny feeling it's not going to happen. He's going to stick to the same 15 or almost the same 15 and go with it again.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think we're going to see stubborn Gatland, and he's going to stick with this recipe. If there are changes, I think you're right. It'll be in the front row. I think that was an area of weakness, particularly then when he brought the bench on at that 46-minute mark. I don't think they were up for it. Um, so yeah, I'm with you with Nicky Smith and Henry Thomas in the front row. I think maybe we could see somebody like Chris Chunza coming into the team, whether on the bench or starting. I think he could
Give him a
potentially
whirl.
start in place of Rowlands. We might see Freddie Thomas on the bench this week because we're probably less likely to see him against South Africa, and Warren will want to cap him. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's wearing the 20 jersey. Um, and then we'll just see the different structure to the bench because Gatland has said no, he's not going to do a 6-2
Not going to do a
split again.
6-2.
No,
So we
Obviously
will
didn't
probably
for game
see
week.
Ellis Bevan at scrum half again, Sam Costello maybe in 22 jersey, and maybe somebody like Josh Hathaway to
I think
just
Hathaway might get on the bench, as you say, just to get him capped
yeah,
this weekend.
yeah. hmm
And I think, that nicely deals with one of the questions that we had from Andrew Hughes, which is what changes can we make? Andrew, those are what we would propose. We'll obviously see the squad when that's probably announced Thursday Friday. And it'll be interesting to see what changes are made, if anything. I think a lot of the pundits out there are kind of thinking that he'll stick largely with the same squad. Certainly won't make the mistake again with the 6-2 split. My husband John raised a question, which was, if not Gats, then who? We've obviously said financially he's in contract until after the 2027 Rugby World Cup. There's going to be payout clauses within that contract. He's not stupid enough to resign and walk away without knowing that he's got his moolah there
Yeah.
for him.
There is, of course, somebody
Yeah,
that we're all
Toby
very,
Booth
very
has made
familiar
it.
with. I was going to say, yeah, there's somebody we're all very
Yeah.
familiar with who might be available at the end of the season, or
Do you know what?
possibly sooner.
Yeah. Do you know who I would love to see? And I think I would. I rated him as, we all know rugby's not, like, rugby's my main sport, but I will watch pretty much most things. But I really love rugby league as well. I love Sean Edwards as a player. I love him even
Mm.
more as a coach, as a fellow person who will go anywhere and everywhere wearing trainers. Then got a lot of time for the man. I don't know if you guys know that story. Um, he will only go somewhere if he can wear his trainers, funeral, weddings,
Really?
the whole shebang. Yeah. I went to see the Good, the Bad, the Rugby on tour last year, and they were talking about Sean Edwards and saying how hard he is. And somebody said to him, "Why do you always wear trainers, Sean?" And he was like, "Well, you never know when it's going to kick off, and you'll need your trainers." So it just always makes me laugh. But as someone who will literally wear trainers to anywhere and anything, including my wedding, um, I gotta love that in a man. So I kind of would love to see him, because he's doing wonderful things with France, and I do think it would be a relatively easy step up for him to make to a head coach position. I'd love to see him come back. Um, as a Northerner, I think he gets the Welsh. Um, I wouldn't be too mad if Toby had a little punty punt. I'd be all right with that. Which kind of leads us. Should we put that to bed?
I think
We
so.
we we worry about Australia. We've already talked about the freak that is. I can't remember his name. Situla Tuali, absolutely amazing player. Um,
What what I will say on that game is that I still think we're in with a shot.
we can win.
It's it's by no means unwinnable.
Mm.
Um, I almost think that that Fiji fixture was a bigger banana skin,
A wake
obviously,
up call.
but it's the kind of game that we would lose at this point in our sort of development. Australia feels less sort of intimidating in a sense. Disregarding the results from this weekend,
Mm.
it feels
Hey,
like a fixture that we're more familiar with, and it gives me
I
a
saw
bit
them
more
win in
confidence.
Lyon in the Rugby World Cup against Australia. I know we can do it. Nobody
Yeah.
expected us to go and do that. We thought we were just going to go for a jolly for the weekend. What a weekend. So I think we are potentially Australia's banana skin, because they were not expecting that last September at all, in the
Mhm.
slightest. But as per usual, I know you were tweeting throughout, Mark. I was tweeting throughout. Do you know what? I didn't attract any arseholes on Twitter this weekend.
No, no, no abuse at all for the first time in a few months.
None.
I know.
Absolutely none. I was quite shocked. Like, literally, no crazies went for me. What is going on?
Fijian
Um,
Twitter must be extremely friendly.
Yeah.
Either that or they got no electric. But oh God, I'm as bad as you now, Rod, insulting the Fijians. Actually, every time I watch the Fijians play, I've absolutely loved watching them play, because they're right when you call them flying Fijians, because they can shift and they're hard as blinking nails. So lots gone on this week as well. I know we touched a little bit on um, the women's contracts last week, and we've had some developments since then with Johan Cunningham resigning. or leaving by mutual
Shit.
consent. Can't we just come out like they do in
Yeah.
football and say, do you know what? We sacked him.
Hmm.
He's gone. Like, let's be honest. Why have they always got to leave by mutual consent or agreement? Can we
Hmm.
just say, look, he's gone? I do feel he was a fall guy, somewhat, because
Yeah.
how do you go from someone whose players jump on you after, I can't remember which game it was in the Women's Six Nations, who players are bouncing all over you and are so happy to all of a sudden being in the position where you've got to resign. He doesn't strike me as the type who chase women to sign contracts off his own back.
No.
It's come from above, isn't it?
I think if he'd gone based on performance, that'd be more understandable in some ways because
Yeah.
Yeah,
the team has not been playing well over the last 12 months. But yeah, as you say, he is the fall guy, he is the scapegoat. Somebody had to be. Teflon Walker looks like he's got away with it again. And
Mm.
you know,
Jim talking to.
yeah, exactly.
I'm
I think
surprised he
I'm
showed
Jim.
his face at the game on the
I know.
weekend.
Are you
And
surprised they booed?
And
well, I'm
Abertini as well.
disappointed they didn't boo more.
Boo
It wasn't
louder.
really, it didn't come through
Didn't need to be,
too
yeah,
well on
and
the
louder.
TV. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think he's had a
It's
rap
just
on the
sad.
knuckles, and I just think he just it just annoys me. As a woman, it just annoys me. You put pressure, you've been a complete misogynist, you've tried to get women to bow to your will. Like, down with patriarchy, man. You know, it just annoys me. You put people in a weaker position than you, and you force them into a position by, yeah, okay, perhaps calling their bluff and saying, well, you won't go to work and this, that, and the other. That's not a nice character trait, and we know he's got form for it. So a stern talking to doesn't cut it. Obviously, one of the questions that we had on YouTube this week was about how easy it would to take someone through that disciplinary process, but it would depend on what disciplinary process he'd go through and what he's breached. We
Mm.
don't know the content of the letter. They have said that once they've gone through their investigation, they'll release their findings. But to be honest with you, as we discussed with Si last week, when you've got a quango, they're going to release what they want to release. You're not going to know the ins and outs. And you always know that in any story, there's your side, there's my side, and somewhere in the middle lies the truth. I just think we're just a joke. Absolutely just a joke.
I think trust is the biggest issue now going forward, isn't it? It's just another incident where we feel that we can trust the union less and less, and the people at the top of the union, especially Walker and Taney, the public aren't going to trust them going forward, and that's bound to have a negative impact
She should know better
at
as
the
a woman.
bottom. Yeah.
As a woman in business who's got to the position that she is, she's probably had to break through more than one glass ceiling because, you know, you don't get to the top of that structure without having to do a bit of that. Um, and, we've had some, really good comments from people off the back of last week's podcast. And one of the comments or one of the messages that we sent to us was a really good message from Martin Lewis, not the money expert. We wish Martin Lewis watched us, but we said brace yourself for a rant. And I didn't see what Martin wrote as a rant. I thought it was really common sense. We said, and I'll just quickly run through this. First, when are the incompetent, inept, backwards looking, couldn't run a tap, let alone a sports administrators in the Welsh Rugby Union going to realise facts like the male to female ratio in Wales in 2021 was 48.9% male to 51.1% female. So by constantly abusing the women's game, they're literally alienating the majority of the population and failing to realise that the larger customer base in Wales is actually women. Also, if they were smart, they would realise that this is a huge marketing opportunity for sponsors. And if they genuinely tried to embrace and develop and nurture women's rugby, then they could attract brands which are more traditionally female supporter or player. So, for example, Max Factor Stadium. So you're bringing a multinational band to rugby sponsorship. Also mentioned traditionally female brands like Tampax and Norways. Sorry if that makes any of the male people feel uncomfortable. Um, but that could be incorporated into a community project between the Welsh Rugby Union and the sponsors. And I love this, Martin. Thank you so much for this comment to help tackle period poverty, um, because that is a massive thing. Child poverty at the moment is a major bugbear of mine. We live in such a developed country, and I'm sorry, this is not rugby related. How we have children in poverty who can't afford soap, toothbrushes, basic amenities, never mind things like food and heating and clothing and somewhere safe to live. To have a young woman going into her adolescence not being able to look after her basic bodily need, and plus VAT on top of this shit as well, that really annoys me. Sorry, I've joined in your rant now, Martin. I'm really sorry. But I agree. There's such a great commercial tie-in that you could make with this, and you could do so much good for these communities. And he said, anyone who questions the fact that the women game can achieve is after Vodafone has come in to sponsor the women's first team. And he said, sorry if it's a long rant, but it amazes me that so-called business people can't see this. I'm a HG driver and I can see the potential of the women's game. Why can't they? Sorry for the long rant, but this really annoys me.
Well, that's the thing.
Martin,
Like,
preach, mate.
yeah,
Preach.
yeah. I mean, all the males listening will feel the same way.
Mm,
And so it's not 48, 52, or whatever the percentage is. It's 100%. All the stuff they're doing is damaging their reputation for 100%
across the board.
of the Welsh rugby population. And it feels like some of that damage is irreparable.
Mm,
Um, it takes a moment for these things, for these stories to break, and it takes, 10 minutes to write that letter that takes 5 years to rebuild
it
from the
does.
reputational damage from it. So, these things just keep piling up, and as they do, more and more people are going to turn away from the Welsh game, and that's what's really sad, because,
Committee men,
we
committee
come
men.
from such heights,
Yeah.
and this is where we are now.
And this is the thing that really irritates me is that we've got the clubs with their, and this is, and when I say non-professional, this is not against any profession. You could be a road sweeper and have more sense than, Abby Tierney, let's face it. But you've got people who are trying to run a commercial grassroots business to lead up to the international team who do not know anything about the world of finance, corporate sponsorship, or anything else. And they're because of the way that the Welsh Rugby Union is set up, they are allowed to get away with that. They're not part of that corporate structure. And that's what we need to get away from. We need to realize that this is a business. Sport is business, whether you like it or not. We need to earn our money. In the job that I'm in, you've got to earn enough, we're called fee earners in my job for a reason, because you've got to earn enough money to keep your seat at the table. If you're not bringing money in, you're no use to anybody. So I kind of feel when I look at things from a commercial aspect, that's how I look at things. What worth are you bringing in? What value are you adding? Because if you're detracting, you're no good to me. You need to go. It's all really good, valid points by Martin, and thank you, Martin. I love that. You can be one of Sam's feminist member of the feminists club. Um, which kind of leads us on as well to a question that we had from Nick Williams. Nick's a fantastic supporter of ours. He always comments on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. So, Nick, can you send me a message on Twitter or Instagram? Because without fail, every week you raise a question, you always have a bit of dialogue. And you know what? You're going to be the first receiver of a black feather notebook and pen. So if you message me, I'll make arrangements to get that sent out to you because I like the cut of your jib, mate. Um, he's asked a question: what are we expecting from the Welsh Rugby Union strategic plan due shortly? Now, we're assuming, Nick, forgive us if we're being ignorant, that this is around the regional plan that was being discussed, that was originally floated a couple of weeks ago with the 20% equity shares within the clubs, which then kind of evolved into a golden share that we discussed on the pod with Si last week. Um, what are we expecting? Me personally, nothing, nothing. If you expect nothing, you're not disappointed when you don't get it.
Mm.
So, sorry to
Yeah, there's
sound
things
negative.
I want to see in it and I want to hear in it. But my expectations are low. Hopefully, there's some information about funding of the regions. Obviously, disregarding all the structural four teams, three teams stuff. Don't want to get into that really, but yeah, hopefully we know what budgets are going to look like over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Um, and hopefully they are going up as was alluded to, a
Yeah.
couple of months ago. That's all I'm expecting.
Do you know what my mum would say to you, Rod? I want isn't always I get. So we'll go with base level.
Then there has
Um,
to be some kind of financial boost in it. That's the only
there's
way.
got to,
That's
yeah.
the only way the
Yeah.
regions are going to move forward in any way is if we can up the salaries that we can offer players to attract the players to stay in Wales, let alone bring players in from elsewhere. It's keeping what we've already got that we can't do
Yeah.
currently, and
And
it's
I think
times that they got to do that.
one of the things that we discussed before pod as well was one club players, and the likes of Sam
Mm.
Robot and other people saying that they've loved being a one club player under this new scheme. If they're moving from club to club, then they're not going to create any regional loyalty. They're not going to create any fan loyalty. It becomes a job then, doesn't it? Rather than,
Mm.
okay, I know they're professional sportsmen and it is a job, but there's got to be a certain element of club loyalty there as well.
Mhm.
So,
I think the
we
worry
The
potentially,
fans as well, because I
yeah,
know when I was a kid, I followed players. I
yeah,
was I was Welsh centric growing up. I hadn't nailed my colours to any flag post, and I followed players, the players that I liked. And if they're all
mm,
jumping around all over the place or being funneled into one or two of the regions, then those are going to draw all the fans as well. And
yeah,
the other regions are going to become even less financially viable with the ever diminishing fan bases. So
yes,
yeah, it's not just the player loyalty, it's the fan loyalty too.
yeah,
I think as well. I mean, you would expect from this report that the Welsh national teams are going to be front and center in making sure that they're
mm,
competitive again and how that's going to happen. But that can only happen with the pyramid below it being strong as well. And it's
yeah,
what plan is going to be in place to make sure that that pyramid can actually support the national team. Because if the national team doesn't thrive, then the interest will wane. And if the interest wanes, then as we saw on Saturday, we're talking empty seats. Empty
yeah.
seats lead to hundreds of thousands, enough, if not millions, of lost revenue. Um, so we've got to find a way to make the national team strong by building that pyramid below it, all the way from grassroots to clubs to regions to the top.
Grassroots are your foundation at the end of the day, aren't they? And I think if you capture people, you know, early, then you're gonna get them for life. I know I've said before on the podcast, I started going watching the Whites with my old man when I was knee-high to a grasshopper. There was never any doubt that I was going to be a Whites fan. And then when the region was formed, there was never any doubt that I was going to be an Ospreys fan. But then obviously for me growing up, then I did see the likes of the Swansea team in my teens with your likes of your Scott Gibbs, your Jarvis, your Andy Moore when they were performing, you know, well. You get someone early, and I know I mentioned earlier on, nobody's football team really is their local football team, is it? You watch your teams as you're growing up, and all of a sudden you're a Liverpool fan, you're a Man United fan, or whatever. But it's usually because you've watched and you've latched onto one particular player and you've
Mhm.
followed them throughout their career. That's a thing, and that's the thing that happens. I suppose the other thing that we've had confirmed since last week is Adam Beard looking ever more likely, and it's pretty much spot on. Like it's pretty much guaranteed now that he is off to Montpellier at the end of the season, which again they they're going to be paying him good money. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as much as the fans can say, oh, well, he's not this, he's not that, he's not the other, he does do a lot of the unseen dirty grunt work. So we will miss him. So it is sad to wave a player of that caliber away. But again, it's how we continue to build. One of the things that I love about the Ospreys is that they are bringing the younger players through, which
Mm.
kind of leads us quite nicely on into this weekend. We've got Ospreys development, the Dragons development, which Dragons off that win against Scarlets last week, they're going to be looking, they're going to be looking ahead and fancying their chances, really, aren't they? Don't know
Mm.
if anybody watched the Scrum Five program about the youngsters going through development last year. I think it
No.
might still be on iPlayer. It was lovely to see them go through the development and play against the other regions for all the under 18s team. And some of those players now have actually started coming through.
Mm.
Um, but it's tough for them coming through the regions. It's not an easy ride.
But
Um,
that's our feeding ground now, isn't it? The reality is for a team like the Ospreys, we have to get that development right. We have
yeah,
to grow our own. And we are seeing that coming through with people like Ratty and Fender thinking about replacing Beard next
yeah,
season. The new bought sort of great banks in as well. And I know they haven't developed him, but they are bringing those youngsters through to replace the players who are leaving him in Beard. I suppose the one positive is that it takes a big wage off our books next season. He is going to be one of the higher earners.
yeah.
But it's how we then spend that money wisely in order to strengthen in the areas that we need to.
We want something that gives us more bang for our buck, don't we?
Yeah,
At the end of the
absolutely.
day,
Yeah.
we really, really do.
I was
And
just trying
that
to have a quick look. Do we have Montpellier in Europe this year?
we do, yeah. We play them in
Should we?
December,
And when is Beard rumored to be moving?
End of
Is
the
it
season.
end of
halfway through the season
season,
or the end of the
End of
season?
the
end of
season.
season.
Oh, okay. We could have seen a really interesting situation there.
New magic.
Um, yeah.
Um, John actually went out to Montpellier the last time they played out there, and I couldn't go. It was just before Christmas. Um, I think it was the weekend before Christmas, and they went on a trip organised by the Ospreys. And they had a fantastic time out there, and obviously made even better by the fact that we beat Montpellier. Um, but it is a shame, you know. As long as you don't make friends with Stuart Hogg, we're all good, really, and we, you know. Um, but it is one of those things, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? But I think we kind of talked the bones around everything now. Anybody got anything interesting or feel that they want to add or
I'm
no?
looking forward to Sam's rando question this week because that was a pretty depressing episode, doesn't it? So we need something a bit more
Ah,
light-hearted after that. That just felt like
Absolutely.
a bashing session.
Sam's random question. Do you know what? My original question was going to ask because I was feeling depressed. And I was in the car with my mum yesterday. Um, I took her to Cardiff shopping. And my mother is the most random person. Like you think I'm random, right? My old girl times that times a million, right? So she's 77 now and she's starting to think about going off this mortal coil. So my mum's funeral song is Sway. Yesterday, she decided that perhaps she didn't want Dean Martin's Sway anymore. She wanted the Pussycat Dolls version. Now, it's going to be quite a somber occasion. I was originally going to ask you if you were to shuffle off your mortal coil, what would your two funeral songs be?
I've thought about
Now,
this before.
have you? And I have.
Oh
So
yeah.
my mother's is Sway, and she put something random out there by Frank Sinatra, which I thought was quite funny. So what would your funeral, and I know it's depressing, but it always makes me quite happy finding out what people's funeral songs would be, because it's got to be a you thing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, it's always going to be something rock or metal, bit more classic in its sound. So I always like the idea of "Free Bird" by Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Leonard Skinner.
um, because you have that first, it's a long song, isn't it? And you have that
Yeah,
first few minutes where it's quite somber.
yeah.
And I can imagine, everyone around crying. But as soon as that electric guitar riff starts going and it starts breaking down, just I don't know, people losing their, losing their heads and just rocking out and having a bit of party at my funeral. And that song would, perfectly ease people through that transition from mourning into sort of celebrating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I like it. I like it a lot.
Clearly
Amazing.
thought about that before.
You have. I like it. I like it a lot. Mark, have you
Oh,
thought about
blimey.
this?
I have thought a little bit, yeah. I mean, there's one song that my wife and I both love, which is by an artist called Ben Folds, which is called The Luckiest, which is
Yeah.
about sort of a relationship and missing somebody when they've gone or whatever, which is a bit more, little bit maudlin. Um, but that's kind of a special song. I mean, there was a poll, wasn't there, by Undertakers a while back of the top 10 funeral songs.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think Stairway to Heaven was sort of up there somewhere, as you can
Mm.
imagine. And again, going on to your theme, Rods, you've got that sort of somber beginning and then
Yeah.
sort of rocking out towards the end as well. And I think that's a very appropriate song and probably why it's sort of high in the funeral
The
charts,
funeral chart.
wasn't it? Yeah. So that's probably up there, I think, as well.
I'll
I
fire
love
one back at you both then, and make you think on your feet, Sam. What about your walkout song if you were a boxer or a UFC fighter?
Oh my God. So it would have to be.
Well, she's not so good at thinking on her
I
feet,
No,
know.
no,
making us
because
scramble
my
every
original
week.
thought would have been Ant and Deck, let's get ready to rumble, right? Um, but I think it would be something like White Snake, Here I Go Again.
Good song. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
or Pour Some Sugar on Me or something like that. But then again, I always say that would be my stripper song. So,
Mm,
Pour Some Sugar on Me would be that. Um, funeral song wise, then it would be Gloria Gaynor, I Am What I Am, the disco
mm.
version, full on gayer than gay disco.
Say
Like I
drag queens
literally,
dancing down the aisles as well, maybe.
oh, absolutely, like every time. Because I just think the words of that are just unapologetically me. I literally just, yeah, I love Gloria Gaynor's I Am What I Am. Shirley Bassey also did a nice version as well, but I think the disco upbeat version is me. But no, I think if I was gonna be, it would have to be a power ballad of some kind that I would come out to for UFC, and I think it would be something like, or Motley Crue or something like that. It would have to be something like that. It
Yeah.
couldn't be anything.
I mean,
I don't
it could be
know.
any AC/DC track, couldn't it, really?
I did
That
like
kind of
Thunderstruck before the Wills game on
Thunderstruck
Saturday.
would
I
be one
thought
of
it was
mine.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
It builds the atmosphere, doesn't it? Or just something really, really nationalistic, just like coming out to a Mawheed. Um,
Calon Lan.
I can't
yeah,
speak
it's a
Welsh,
bit
so
of
I'm
me as
screwed.
well.
I could go for, every day when I wake up, I thank the Lord that I'm Welsh, by Catatonia. No, I think it would Journey, Don't Stop Believing. That is a great song. Me and John, my wedding anniversary is coming up, and we had like a proper up and downer about what the last song was going to be of the night of our wedding. So we had a singer, great, and John was like, "It's got to be Proclaimers, 500 Miles." I was like, "Nah, nah, we're having Journey, Don't Stop Believing." And we proper rowed over that and fruitcake. And I won. He had 500 miles by the Proclaimers just before um, Journey Don't Stop Believing. But then it was at the point where I was drinking, and I'd been drinking pints of vodka and orange. And I missed my taxi. So I had to get on the bus with everybody else home, which is not easy in 25 layers of tulle and a 3.5 stone dress, let me tell you. I got wedged sideways into a seat. I couldn't even sit down. What would you come out to then to UFC, Mark?
Oh, blimey. Oh, I think we've gone through the whole gambit of 80s power rock, haven't we? Linkin Park's always good for sort of getting pumped.
Mm.
Don't know what track I'd choose though. Some like Paper Cut, maybe, I don't
New,
know.
New Divide, the one from the Transformers film. That's
Yeah,
got
yeah,
good
that'll be good.
walkout
Yeah,
vibes.
yeah. Oh, I don't
Got to
know.
be
There's
something where you're a
so
bit
many
like,
out there.
you know what I mean?
Something upbeat, isn't it? Something to get you in the mood to batter somebody.
Yeah, yeah.
That like it's got to be. Do you know what I mean? But then again, would you go totally mental and do the Benny Hill like and you'd be like ducking and diving and doing something stupid.
Yeah, my
Um,
other go-to song as well is the theme tune from Bullseye. That'd be
oh
a
my
good one as
God.
well.
I mean, I watch a lot of snooker, and I love that the snooker guys all walk out to walkout songs, but their
Yeah,
song selection is so off the wall sometimes that they've never got that sort of atmosphere building, really sort of powerful songs with heavy beats or lots of thrashing sort of guitar. They're always just like their favorite song,
Yeah,
and it can be
Tina
something
Turner or
really,
Simply Red or something.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
no. It's got to be The Pretender by the Foo
Oh
Fighters
yeah, that's a good
and
shout.
the
Mm,
Who Are You. It would have to be that or something like
yes.
Live and Let Die. But I like the
Yeah,
Foo Fighters version
Yeah,
of that. So that could
that's
be
a
rather
great
epic,
shout.
couldn't it?
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I like that. I like that.
So we now all
Mm.
know we know what my stripper song is. We Def Leppard, Pour Some Sugar on Me. Um, we know our funeral songs now, and we also know our UFC, you know, fight songs. Talking of that, Jake Paul and Mike Tyson's coming up as well. Please,
Yes.
Jake Paul.
I thought you
Please,
said
Tyson.
Jake Ball
Not Jake
then.
Paul.
Well, he's
No, Jake
Jake Paul
Paul's
retired.
just announced
retiring. He's not,
his retirement today.
That's
He's
what
going
yeah,
back to UFC,
he's
is
not gonna
he?
start fighting.
You heard it
Um,
here
uh,
first. Jake Paul, UFC
Jake
fighter.
Paul, I'm so praying. Him and his brother are just awful.
yeah,
So I'm really hoping that Tyson knocks him flying.
absolutely batters him.
But
Yeah,
that is like age. You know, I just think, yeah, happy days. But onwards to Sunday against Australia, guys. You never know. They might have that little bit of magic that they had out for me out in Lyon last September. Um, we can but pray. This is actually my Leon shirt. So I put this on Saturday, and I've still got my lucky socks and my Rugby World Cup gazelles. So I might just I could put my berry on as well, couldn't I? 'Cause I've got a
yeah, go full
berry.
hog. Yeah,
So I can go full on lucky clothing, pray to the gods, and it's nearly Christmas. So if Santa wants to do me a solid, because I've been pretty okay this year. Like I've not been nowhere near as bad as I could have been. So, and final
Well,
question, when do we think it's acceptable that I can wear Christmas jumpers on the pod?
first week in December.
Okay, are we all wearing Christmas jumpers?
It has to be Christmas month itself, doesn't it? I think you can't go any earlier than that.
Oh,
yeah.
you totally can. I had one on last Friday. I don't care.
You can for
Absolutely.
songs and adverts, but not for clothing. Not for clothing. That's a step too far.
Listen, my phone case is a Christmas Highland cow, and my ringtone is Wham last Christmas. It has been since the 1st of November. It's officially Christmas. Everything that I'm eating now is officially it's Christmas.
You
Like,
carry on, Sam. Whenever you want to, you bring it on. Whenever you want.
okay, well, I might save that for the last week of the pod. Next week, guys, we might have a little visitor with us. We might have a little bit of a crossover with our pals at URC Chumps. We've got Kirby, our South African. Kirby's possibly the only South African that actually likes me and doesn't give me shit on Twitter. What can I possibly do next week to upset them? Um, so we might have a little bit of a crossover, but we'll put it all on all our socials. And Rod, do you want to tell the people the stats of last week's episode? Our most watched.
Yeah, so it's been interesting. Our listenership has shifted dramatically away from Spotify and onto YouTube. But all in all sort of different platforms lumped together, it was our best week so far, episode 10, for views, watches, whatever you want to call it. So I think we had about 250, still climbing a bit towards 300. this
Brilliant.
week, which is really good. Yeah, really good. And the majority of those were on YouTube, so people clearly love to see our faces, which is not what I expected to be saying. I thought
Oh,
most people would be just listening to us on Spotify. So that's great. Yeah, so continue to support us
yeah,
on
thank you.
YouTube or
Like,
Spotify,
click, subscribe,
wherever's
share.
wherever you prefer. Yeah, and like, subscribe, follow, hit the little bell icon so you don't miss anything as well.
We are loving doing this. We're loving having people on. Do you think there could be a correlation with the fact that Sai was on last week and he's a bit of a silver fox?
No, it's
Maybe. I
definitely
did
us.
push it hard on the socials as well because his face was on all the
Everything.
screenshots.
It was on absolutely everything.
Let's not put
Oh, that
ourselves
was
down
the
though.
other question. I'll save it
No.
for next week. Next week's question is going to be, who's your random boy or girl crush that you totally fancy, but you think, oh, that's a bit strange?
The whole
Think
Connacht
about
team for me, that is a
yeah. Rod's got his boy crushes with, Nikki Smith,
More
Morgan
boy
Wallen,
crushes than women crushes.
Snaggy. That's all right. I got lady crushes with Taylor Swift and Kylie, so it's all good in the hood. But think about this for next week. I want you to come back to me with your random crushes.
Got
Absolutely.
it.
Got it. Next week, I'm giving you a prior warning. It's not to say I won't shove another rando in there.
Rod knows
I'll give
already.
you
Look, he's
another
there.
warning.
He's in.
Oh God, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I moved away from female celebrity crushes and onto male rugby players.
You know, yeah. You've got a girlfriend now as well, and you've got to be careful just in case you're in punching distance.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, guys. We are loving doing this. We're loving the traction that we're getting. Nick, please DM me. I will get you a notebook and a pen for being such a fantastic supporter of ours. Rod will put the banner up with all our socials on, and we will see you next week.
And
Nerves
a
of steel for
reminder,
this week.
sorry, Sam, break your flow. Just a reminder for anyone looking for some Ospreys therapy this weekend. The development team is playing, and it's a
Yeah,
first opportunity to get down and see St. Helens. Now, I don't think any work has started, but it'll be nice to just get down there and experience it for one last time before all the
the
works.
doors are
So I'm
set
going to get
shut.
down. Yeah,
You're going down, are you?
yeah, I'll go down. I think tenner a ticket.
Give me a shout. Might liaise with you. Who knows? But have a lush one. Try and keep your nerves steady now for Sunday. If in doubt, we'll be on Twitter. We'll be going and tweeting throughout the game. Have a lovely week all, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Right, come on, Cymru.
Ta-ra.